Oh my god! The fuck, look at it go!
Hey everyone, Jarek the Gaming Dragon here. If you're already subscribed and you haven't clicked that bell, be sure to do that, otherwise YouTube won't tell you that I posted anything. If you haven't subscribed, well, watch this video and maybe consider subscribing if you like it. Have you ever wanted to play as a cowboy vampire set in a gothic old western? Me neither, but someone's mind saw this and they need a raise. Now, I had seen this game in the past. Darkwatch is an original Xbox game, and I always just kind of looked over it. Until I streamed it, I never played it or saw much about it. I just saw the cover and saw the art style and figured it probably wouldn't be something I was into. This was a heavy case of don't judge a book by its cover because the actual gameplay isn't what you'd think it would be looking at the art style. It has quite a bit of a cult following at this point, but I feel like that's purely because of the art style. The game does have some flaws, and I'll be talking about those later, but it is a good game. Let's start where we always do. The graphics. This game was an original Xbox and PS2 game. What you're seeing here is footage captured from my 360, as this game is backwards compatible on the 360. It's not backwards compatible on the Xbox One though, so you need to have an original Xbox or an Xbox 360 to play it. Alternatively, you can play it on a PS2, although I think the best way to play it is on a PS2 emulator called PCSX2. The reason I say this is because this game was kind of behind even when it came out. This game came out in 2005. That means games like Halo 1 and 2, Half-Life 2, Far Cry 1, Doom 3 all came out before it. Yet this game is stuck in 4.3 for whatever reason. That's why you see this letterbox. You simply can't play this game in widescreen. It's a little bit strange, and I know it's an original Xbox game and a PS2 game, but no widescreen, even for an original Xbox and PS2 for 2005, is exceedingly rare. The reason I say it's probably best to play it on an emulator is because there are patches to make this natively widescreen on that emulator. It also makes me wish this game came out on PC and then you wouldn't have these problems at all. I mean, Fear came out the same year as this game and it still holds up today. Especially since aside from that, this game actually doesn't look that bad for a 2005 game. The textures are decent quality, the aesthetic is beautiful in this game, and the art style really holds up. If it wasn't for the 4:3 aspect ratio, this game would actually age pretty gracefully. So graphics are a bit of a mixed bag. It does look good for 2005, it's just a little behind technologically for whatever reason. And again, I don't mean behind by 2019 standards, I mean behind by 2005 standards, when the game came out. As you would expect, the story is quite interesting in this game. You're an anti-hero. You start this game as a bandit robbing a train for what you think is a lot of gold in the vault. You blow open the vault and there's no gold in the vault, instead you've released Lazarus, who also releases demons all across the Old West. Good job. In the process of this happening, you end up getting turned into a vampire. Or at least, the transition phase starts happening so you're half vampire, half human. You can see where the story should be going from here. You need to defeat Lazarus, get rid of all these demons, and turn yourself back into a human. But that's an oversimplification of how this story plays out. The anti-hero protagonist you play as throughout this game probably has the most generic name you can come up for this situation: Jericho Cross. While you're robbing this train, you meet someone named Cassidy Sharp, who was originally defending the vault. She's an agent in an ancient vampire hunting order known as the Darkwatch, hence the game's name. After you release Lazarus, you team up with her and the Darkwatch despite the fact that you were turning into a vampire. But very early on, she ends up getting killed, and her soul becomes more or less the voice in your head, kind of that good angel on your shoulder. Once you reach the Darkwatch headquarters, you meet up with a woman named Tala, another agent in the Darkwatch. And let me get a personal rant out of the way, she is the most generic, leather-wearing, big booby lady action movie thing you've ever seen in your life. I hate this stereotype. I don't hate it for any reason of like objectifying women or anything, I just think it's stupidly cliche. Yeah, we get it, you like leather, you like boobs, that's nice, I like boobs too, but I don't let my dick get in the way of my video game. If I wanted to watch softcore porn, I would just go watch softcore porn. It's a one-dimensional stereotype that's incredibly predictable. We've seen this before and we know how it's gonna play out. She's gonna end up becoming the bad guy somehow. And she does. While you're in the Darkwatch, you're just taking orders trying to stop Lazarus, but she seduces you. Because why not? When she does, you bite her, turning her into a vampire, letting Lazarus' army into the Darkwatch headquarters. That was her and Lazarus' whole plan. It was somewhat predictable, to be entirely honest, and the sex scene that happens in-game feels incredibly forced. At this point, Lazarus has no need for you and is just gonna try to kill you. Eventually, you do end up fighting Lazarus and killing Lazarus, and you think this should just be the end. But it isn't. It keeps going for a little while afterward, and the true final boss battle is happening either between Cassidy Sharp, kind of your good angel on your shoulder, or Tala, the demon on your shoulder. If you choose to join up with Cassidy Sharp, you end up fighting Tala, Beat her, everything returns back to normal, and you get your humanity back. Kind of a happily ever after story. However, if you choose to side with Tala, you end up killing Cassidy Sharp, and then killing Tala as well, becoming sort of the leader of this evil awakening. To be honest, I like this ending a lot more because fuck Tala, she's annoying. I hated Tala the moment I saw her generic booby leather wearing ass. Being able to kill her just feels really satisfying. To make matters worse, this game seems to take itself way too seriously. There's no self-awareness at all, which for this style of plot, you really need some self-awareness. The story isn't necessarily entirely bad, it's just not good. It feels like a B action movie, and I'm sure some people can enjoy this, but a lot of it just seemed to annoy me rather than keep me invested in the game. What did keep me invested in the game though was the gameplay and the aesthetic. I believe this is why it has a cult following. It's just so unique. Where are you going to see this anywhere else? Now, if you're a vampire, it's safe to assume you're going to be playing a very different game than a regular shooter. And that's kind of true. You get a lot of different powers that you don't have in other games. The powers are split up between good or evil, and on each side you have 4 different powers you can unlock. The first one on the good side is Silver Bullet, and this does exactly what you would think. Your guns become stronger and you don't have to reload them. This means that with things like, say, revolvers, you can spam a lot of bullets down range and do a lot of damage very quickly, which is very good against bosses. The second one is Fear, which makes enemies run away from you, but the stronger enemies just won't care and will attack you anyway. The third one is Mystic Armor, which just gives you superior armor and you can't really take damage. The fourth one is Vindicator, which is easily the best one on the good side. It puts electricity out from one enemy to the other, one-shotting everything. On the evil side, you have Blood Frenzy, which makes your melee attack stronger and you can't take damage while this is active, so you just run around meleeing everything. The second one you unlock is Turn, which makes an enemy on your side for a limited duration of time. Although they seem to be completely useless and just not attack anyone, so this thing is kind of not good to use. The third power is Black Shroud, which is another ability that gives you armor, but this does damage to enemies that try to attack you, so it's just kind of a better version of the Mystic Armor on the good side. The fourth evil power is Soul Stealer, and this one is by far the best in the game in my opinion. It just immediately kills everything near you. If you see the bar in the top left, that's the bar corresponding to your mana, if you will. When that's full, you can use your powers, and then you see the little compass timing down, and when it's down, you have run out. Every time you kill an enemy, they have a red orb. If you walk near these red orbs, you suck them up, and this will give you health back. If you have full health, you start getting mana to use your powers again. Using Soul Stealer is so good because it kills everything instantly all around you, and then usually you get your mana back instantly. Towards the end of the game, I was just kind of spamming this and getting away with it with not really any repercussions. All in all though, it is pretty nice to have different abilities and something to shake up the usual shooter format. The melee ability is especially fun to use because this is a mid-2000s game, which meant man are they gonna go overboard with physics. Every time you melee someone, they do backflips away from you, and it's just awesome. I miss this about games. I've said this before, but games nowadays all have these choreographed animations when you kill someone, and it's just not as fun. It doesn't feel as satisfying to me to have them do this animation and fall to the ground. It doesn't feel like I did it, it's just an obvious animation being played through. It looks smooth, sure, but it's way more satisfying to watch them ragdoll across the screen. Anyway, there are many different types of enemies, and they do actually present a good threat, so you're going to have to use these abilities to beat the game. It's not terribly difficult, but it's also not a cakewalk either. Aside from these abilities, you do have some basic abilities that you keep the entire game. When you try to zoom, you get this sort of vampire vision that outlines enemies and things of interest like explosives, and this is pretty useful for seeing snipers way off in the distance. You also have something called a blood shield, which acts literally the same way as the shield does in Halo 1. You still have a health bar below that, but that health bar only starts going down once your shield has been depleted and it recharges on its own. The last ability you have is a double jump, which brings up one of my biggest complaints about this game: the controls. Jumping is very floaty in this game, but movement is really important. And this is not something that feels very intuitive with a controller. This is another reason why I really think this game would be a lot better on PC. It would be a lot more natural with a mouse and keyboard. Now before you get angry at me calling me a PC elitist, again, movement is important in this game. It's not really a slow-paced game, and you're going to be jumping everywhere. Jumping everywhere and aiming vertically with a controller is not really a smooth process, especially if you stay with the default controls, being A to jump, meaning you're letting go of the analog stick you need to aim with to jump, but you also need to aim in the air. Now naturally one of the first things I did was change the controls. You can't have your own custom control set unfortunately, but there are numerous different control sets you can choose. I looked for one that was the closest to bumper jumper because that's what I like in Halo, and they don't quite have that, but they do have a control scheme where L is jump, so I just kind of took that instead. Unfortunately, this raised another problem. Down on the D-pad is change weapons. which usually would be fine, but that means you have to let go of the analog stick to change weapons, which you usually want to do quickly. You also don't want to let go of the movement analog stick while an enemy is running at you with an explosive, but you need your shotgun. Keep in mind you only have 2 guns in this game, so it's not like you need a weapon dial. In that specific situation, I would rather let go of the analog stick I need to aim with to swap weapons, because I still want to keep moving away from enemies while swapping weapons. Also, down on the D-pad is just a really weird binding for a 2-weapon game. Anyway, aside from that, it's mostly fine. Like, the aiming doesn't feel terrible. It could feel better, but it certainly is playable. It's just that this is a type of game that would work a lot better with a mouse and keyboard. This is some of the reason why Halo toned its movement down up until recently. It was at the limitations of a controller. And speaking of Halo, if you haven't noticed, this game is really heavily influenced by Halo. The shooting feels like Halo, the shield is taken directly from Halo, even one of the control schemes is called Chieftain and it's just Halo controls. And you know what? I'm fine with this. If they want to take inspiration from one of the best shooters that came out during that time, then go for it. This game is different enough from Halo to not feel like a Halo knockoff in any way whatsoever. It's inspired by Halo, it's not ripping off Halo, and that's a big difference. It has enough unique elements to it that it makes your mind fully think what you're doing the entire way. Well, aside from a few levels. On one of the levels they have almost quite literally a reskinned Warthog. It controls the same way except for the controls are slightly clunkier.
Let me show you how long it takes to go from reverse into driving forward. So I'm going to be pushing forward this whole time. Like, actually, I can just show you when I'm pushing forward. That's how long it takes. Like, it's very, very clunky.
This isn't being inspired by Halo as much as it is ripping Halo off. To make matters worse, they have suicide enemies running at you the entire time. Except this is Halo controls, and the gun shoots with the direction you're looking. Except for the direction you're looking is the direction you're turning. So if you want to shoot at the exploding enemies, you have to drive straight at them. You can see the problem here. They really should have made the controls like Half-Life 2, where the movement keys are the ones that steer left and right, and you can simply look left and right without going that direction. It would have made this level so much better. I also found one of the levels to be particularly annoying. You're a vampire, so as you would expect, sunlight affects you negatively. If you're standing in the sunlight, you can't use any of your powers and you don't have the blood shield. This basically takes away what makes this game so interesting and unique from a gameplay perspective, and one of the levels entirely plays on this. Nearly the whole level has you in daylight. It makes it annoying and not fun. To make matters worse, the whole point of this level is to help one of the Darkwatch caravans that got ambushed. On this caravan is an artifact that allows you to use your vampire powers in the day. So you'd assume, cool, I can get something that bypasses this whole mechanic. But no, you never get this artifact. In fact, Lazarus ends up taking it and becoming more powerful. So why do you make this whole level shit then? It was just pointless. If you're gonna take away all the powers and make the game more annoying, at least give me something for it afterward. One last complaint to have is a small one, but it really builds up over the course of the game. This game loves cutscenes. No matter what's going on, it could be something as small as an enemy spawning, it will stop you and show the enemy spawning in a cutscene. Don't pull me out of the game, just let me keep playing. I can understand the occasional small cutscene, like showing something breaking away from a door that you can now access that you couldn't access a few moments ago. I mean, things like Devil May Cry did this, but just to show me an enemy spawned is too much. Towards the end of the game, you kill Lazarus, and this should be the end of the game, you would think. You just fought through the entire game, but no, there's one level after that, and this level is just kind of enemies spawning and running at you over and over again. I mean, it really is just corridors of enemies running at you as you kill them and get rid of enemy spawners, and this feels like it drags on a little bit too long. At this point, I wasn't playing the game because I really wanted to, I was playing the game just to beat the game and have it done. And then at the end, you fight either Cassidy or Tala, and that's the true ending. It does drag a little bit too much, which is interesting to say because this game is only around 4.5 hours long. If you don't really love the aesthetic of this game, I feel like it's going to be a game of ups and downs. But it's such an interesting, unique game that I'm willing to look over those cons and still have a really good time. I mean, look at the art style, look at the abilities, look at the guns. These guns are interesting as hell. All the revolvers have a bottom-loading magazine that makes it feel like you can fan it forever. The shotgun has rotating barrels and an axe stock, and that's awesome. The sniper reloads by pulling the scope forward and letting the cylinder pop out of the top. I mean, these are genuinely interesting, different guns that are satisfying to use. So as far as gameplay goes, sure, it does falter in some ways, but also it exceeds in about every other way, even the ways that are just generic shooter. I do see why this game has a cult following, but I also see why this game never really got off the ground. It got good reviews, but not amazing sales. Darkwatch was supposed to be the first in a series of games that would take place in different time periods. time periods like ancient Rome or the Crusades or World War II. But the sequel was cancelled and we never saw another one. I feel like this game didn't sell as well as it should have for numerous reasons. For starters, again, looking at the art style, this doesn't really appeal to someone that might be big into something like, say, Halo. I mean, if you just look at the cover, this doesn't look like a first-person shooter, at least not the type that you think it is. But then you play it and it's just kind of Cowboy Vampire Halo with a twist, and I'm totally down with that. But a bigger problem was the advertising. A major part of this game's promotional campaign was based on the sex appeal of the game. I mean, they were putting up pictures in Playboy magazine of Tala and Cassidy. I'm not appalled by them doing this, but the last thing I think of when it comes to Playboy is video games. I also don't think the sex appeal thing works with this style of game. Really, the only sex appeal in this game is one generic cliche woman that isn't there for most of the game. If all they did was show off the gameplay and the aesthetic of this game instead of constantly advertising this leather-wearing booby lady taking a sexy walk at you, it would have sold much better. And again, to clarify, tits are great. Big tits are even better. But that's not why I'm playing video games. If that's the stuff I want, I'm just gonna go look at porn. I don't turn on my Xbox to look at porn. Especially when the game is not self-aware about it in any way whatsoever. My main point here is that their whole focus on the advertising campaign was on one character in the game, instead of actually focusing on the game itself. The only way this advertisement campaign was going to work is if you had a game entirely based around a porn star. Otherwise, you're advertising to a crowd that doesn't even play these games, especially back in 2005. Anyway, Darkwatch is bizarre. It has a cult following that will defend it no matter what, and I'm sure I pissed a few of them off in the comments, but it does deserve more attention than it got. Either you love this game, or you have no idea it exists at all. It truly can't be replaced by anything else. There is nothing else out on the market, so if you want to go give this game a try, it's pretty easy to find nowadays. Assuming you have an Xbox, a 360, or a PS2. If you don't have any of those, well, you can just download an emulator and play it that way. But that about sums up everything I wanted to say about Darkwatch. It was interesting to go back and playing this as a game I never played back in the day. Thanks to everyone that came and hang out with me over on Twitch while I was streaming it. My Twitch is twitch.tv/Jarek4GamingDragon. If you subscribe on Twitch, you'll be able to see my videos one day ahead of time. Same thing goes for my patrons over on Patreon. You can click the link in the bottom right to go check out my Patreon. If you want to watch my other videos, click these videos somewhere around on screen. Thank all of you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.